So did you know that Wichita Falls is about to make worldwide headlines and put ourselves on the map? And if you want to know more about that, stay tuned because we're getting started right now. So welcome back. This is another episode of Your Wichita Falls, and I recently sat down with Henry Florsheim of the Chamber of Commerce of Wichita Falls, and this is what our interview looked like. So stay tuned for that. I'm here today with Henry Florsheim. He is the head of our Chamber of Commerce, and it is amazing the things that are going on in Wichita Falls. So we're going to talk about some of the things that are happening in Wichita Falls, and I'm going to interview Henry from behind the camera. So the first thing, Henry, I want you to tell me about the things that are happening in Wichita Falls, all of the things that are showing up in the community right now that are fun and exciting and bringing business.
Debbie, first off, I appreciate you having me on your show. It's always good to talk to a new audience. So all you viewers out there, welcome to the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce. I've been here about 8 years, and Wichita Falls has changed tremendously since then. One of those is called Panda Biotech, and they are an industrial hemp processing company. And the hemp industry is really interesting. A couple years ago, I didn't know much about it, but overseas in Europe and in China, hemp has been used to create clothing and plastics and all sorts of products for tons of years. But in the United States, way back when, the cotton industry basically got hemp shut down as a potential substitute for cotton until recently. And so now you're seeing states, including Texas, start to legalize industrial hemp to be used for things like clothing and animal bedding and plastics and all sorts of stuff.
So Henry, why do you think that the hemp industry got shut down?
Money. It got shut down because of money. What happens is, in the United States, money talks, and so the cotton lobbyists were able to instill fear in people because hemp, it's a bad thing, right? It's related to marijuana, and you don't want that in your communities, and people didn't know any better. And so until recently, it was not allowed in the United States to be used in processing. And so nowadays, there's a lot of states starting to do that, but what that means is nobody's really good at processing yet. You don't have big facilities all over the country like you do for pretty much every other industry. And so earlier last year, we got introduced to some folks from a company called Panda Energy out of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and they own power plants all over the world, really. And they wanted to get into the hemp business. And we had a facility here in Wichita Falls that had been mostly vacant for quite some time. It had a couple of tenants using it for just some warehouse space, but this was a huge manufacturing facility that was originally AC Delco, I believe, and Delphi, and it was, aching for a new owner. And the folks from Panda had came up several times, and they said, the facility works. You've got enough farmers around the region. We're going to start talking to them and seeing if we can attract some attention from some agricultural leaders to get the stuff grown around here, because you don't want to ship it too far. It'll cost you too much money at some point. And so they're like, we got to have the right climate, and hemp can be grown here. You got to have a facility. You got to have the farming community that's willing to support it. And then you got to have a community, a business community, that will support these efforts. And so when we met them, we said, you know what? This could really put Wichita Falls on the map, because we've got quite a bit of manufacturing. We've got a big Air Force base here, but we don't have unique industries that nobody else has. There's plenty of communities around this country with manufacturing, with Air Force, with a good healthcare hub and that sort of thing, but nobody is doing industrial hemp at this point. And so Wichita Falls has the opportunity to be the epicenter of industrial hemp production in the United States.
Which is amazing.
It's amazing.
And so what was the first thing that got them even interested in us? I mean, I think that's got to be a story in and of itself of how they even landed on our lovely Wichita Falls.
They had looked all over North Texas, and they had initially found a place over in Shallow Water, which I believe is near Lubbock. And the facility just didn't work out, and the community wasn't willing to go to the next steps to help them. And so they backed off of that facility and that location and started looking around again. And so we were one of several communities they were looking at. And I can tell you from a lot of experience, sometimes you just hear from people in these industries and you're like, that's not legit, I'm not going to spend any time on it. And I have a feeling that that happened in several of the communities that they went to. But when they came to Wichita Falls and contacted my staff, we said, this might be a real thing. Let's treat it just like we treat any other prospect, and we did, and got them to come up. And that first time, you know, looked at the building, met the mayor, talked to the economic development leaders and some chamber leaders, and just they said they felt a level of support here that they had not felt anywhere else. Wow. And that warms my heart, because as the head of our economic development efforts, I want people to feel that here. And so from then, we just started talking details, like, what do you need? How do we make this work here? And so one thing we did was set up a meeting with farmers here at the chamber, and we had, I don't know, maybe 15 farmers from around the region come here one night, and we served dinner, and the Panda people came and gave a presentation, and they had, I think, another 20 called in on the Zoom call. And so
how did that go?
It went great. It was good. You know, you're not going to have farmers overnight just commit to changing their process and their crop, but there were enough of them that were interested to make Panda say, okay, I think we've got something going here. We're starting to build some momentum. So we got to work on that part. They got to work on the building part. They got some equipment that's being built for them that they're going to have to make a decision on where to ship it very soon. And then the community support piece as well. And so we worked with our economic development board and with our city council to create an incentive package to help them choose Wichita Falls, and we made that happen. And so ever since then, Panda has shipped millions of dollars of equipment here. They're still renting the building. They have rented the building that I mentioned, and they're planning to buy it later this month. They've got
later this month?
Yeah, they told us July is when they hope to have the building sold.
So it's really a done deal, or there's still some hiccups?
I never say a business deal.
I know, I never say that in real estate.
I never say any of these things are a done deal, but
is it feels 90%?
It's interesting, because if you think about it, it's a startup. It's a very complex startup that hasn't been done in this way at this level in the United States ever. And so we expect some hiccups, but they're going through all the things they have to do to get to the point where they can close on the purchase of the building. And once they do that, they can have the rest of their equipment shipped here. They can start hiring people. They've got one person here so far that's basically the project manager, getting everything set up and being the lead contact with the farmers. And then once they build a building, they'll end up hiring 50 to 75 people. The real economic impact is going to be with agriculture, and then with all the spin-off business, because they're going to be selling their hemp fiber to clothing manufacturers, for example. They've already signed deals with companies that represent labels like Wrangler, you know, and names that we know. And so we think there's an opportunity to attract some of that manufacturing business here. If they're going to be buying enough of this stuff, it's going to cost them more to ship it elsewhere in the manufacture than if they had a space right next door, even if it's a small manufacturing space. And so there's a lot of spin-offs that could happen. We're already thinking about the concept of a research center here. Midwestern State University here in Wichita Falls had just signed a deal to become part of the Texas Tech University system. And so we're envisioning something like a Texas Tech Industrial Hemp Research Center. And that sort of thing is big money. And that's where you can get some real product development, testing done, and have a lot of high dollar research individuals living in our community. And like I mentioned, becoming the epicenter of industrial hemp processing, everything to do with hemp. It's going to happen somewhere, and it might as well be Wichita Falls.
Right. And what I don't think people necessarily recognize is that as that layers out and those other companies come and those research grants come here, then people come, big wage earners, and then they spend money in the community, which then requires more restaurants, more grocery stores, more boutiques, all of that fun stuff. So it's just a layering effect.
That's correct. And economies don't stop at a line on a map. There's no such thing as a Wichita Falls economy. Everything's regional. And people drive an hour sometimes to come work here or come shop here or take advantage of healthcare services or whatever. And so the same thing goes for economic development projects. We've got a company, for example, in Iowa Park, which is maybe 20 minutes away from here, that employs 1,000 people. our economic development board has financially supported that company in that town because 2/3 of their employees live in Wichita Falls. And so we know that a company on the other side of a border somewhere, they're still going to spend money here. Their people are still going to spend money here. For those of you not from the area, Wichita Falls is the hub of this region, and so this is where people come for entertainment purposes, for shopping, for healthcare and legal services, and anything, buying groceries.
Yeah.
And so this is where all the activity is centered. A lot of people like to live out in the country or in smaller towns, but all that money that comes in, not just to Panda, but to their customers as well, it gets spent at companies here, and they spend it with other companies here, and they have payroll, and people pay their rent and buy their TVs and everything. And that's how an economy works. And so the more activity we can generate, especially when it's something unique like this that nobody else has, that just really pumps up an economic developer.
So I know you're pumped and I'm pumped about the possibility of having something come here that's going to put Wichita Falls on the map, which to me, that's just, I go, oh, I get so excited. So share what your feelings about that being the first hemp manufacturing plant, or one of the first in the whole United States, is just, and it's a growing industry.
Sure.
How amazing is that?
Sure.
I mean, really tell people how amazing is that, because I don't think they get it. We're going to be on the map.
We talk to site consultants around the country on a daily basis. These are professionals that companies hire to help them find new locations, because it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. And we know from experience talking to these site consultants, they want to know what makes your communities unique, right? And Wichita Falls just hasn't been that well known around the country before. I'm from Louisiana originally, and when I posted on Facebook 8 years ago that I was moving to Wichita Falls, Texas, there were only two things that my network of people from around the world knew about us. And one is that we're home to Shepherd Air Force Base. And two is that we're host to a huge bicycle event in the fall called Hotter Than Hell. It is the largest single-day endurance bike ride in the entire country. And so those two things, Shepherd Air Force Base and the Hotter Than Hell 100, are great. They're hallmarks of Wichita Falls. They are. We're very proud of those things. However, neither of those things give the average person a reason to come to Wichita Falls on a daily basis. If you're coming to Hotter Than Hell, it's one weekend in August. And if you're coming to Shepherd, it's because either you're stationed here, or your family member's stationed here, or your company does work there. And everybody else just, they see the jets fly overhead and they know about it, but it doesn't affect their everyday lives. And so we want to add, we don't want to move away from those two things because they're huge assets. But we want to add to that. We want to become known as more of a college town, with the relationship between Midwestern and Texas Tech, who's got a worldwide presence now. And then when it comes to industry, there are communities out there that key in on certain industries and become known for those things, whether it's related to tourism, like Branson, or it's related to the insurance industry. If you know Des Moines, Iowa, I mean, that's a pretty amazing place, believe it or not, and they're known for that industry. That's where many of the insurance companies are headquartered, and on and on. You know, the film industry has traditionally been headquartered in California, and so we've got that opportunity to become known around the world as the leader in industrial hemp processing. And as more and more people are looking at sustainability of crops and green energy and all these other things, hemp can help us do many of those things. Hemp does not use as much water as some of our traditional crops do, and you can grow it much close together. And there are many, many reasons why growing hemp as a potential substitute for some other crops, or to complement their growth, really makes a lot of sense. And to think about, to fast forward 5 years from now and envision Wichita Falls being known worldwide for this, that makes somebody like me ecstatic, because we want a calling card in my business. We want to be able to tell somebody from somewhere else, from a site consultant firm or a company in New York City or wherever, hey, I run the chamber in Wichita Falls, and we want them to say, you guys are doing some amazing stuff with industrial hemp.
Right.
That is a dream for a community leader, for an economic developer, for an elected official, to be in a community like ours. Some people say we're a big city, some people say we're tiny, depending on what you compare us to. 100,000 people is nothing to sneeze at. We want something to be known for. And encouraging an industry like this that's really still in its infancy in the United States can get us there.
Yeah. So you have some products right there, so I want to kind of give the viewers a little bit of, we can't do, they can't feel it like I can, but I'm going to do my own little, I like this the best. So this is, tell them what that is.
Yeah, and we can take it out of the bag too if you want. So what happens is they take the stalk of the hemp plant and they put it through a machine called a decorticator. Yeah, and so what Debbie's holding right now is called mechanically cottonized hemp fiber. And so that's hemp that's gone through the same process that a cotton plant would go through. And it becomes this fiber which the clothing manufacturers can then use to turn into blue jeans or a shirt or whatever. Yeah.
But what's fascinating to me is it goes from that, which is it's a little rough. You wouldn't want to wear it as a sweater necessarily.
No, it feels like.
But this is, once it's processed.
Yes, there's a cottonization process where you can make it into a product almost exactly like cotton.
Right.
And you can feel this. It's soft.
It's so soft.
It pulls apart just like
cotton. I mean, I didn't believe that when it was in the bag and I thought that was the cotton. And literally, this looks just like cotton. And it's so soft. This you could wear as a sweater. So it's amazing to me that this sustainable product can be something that we manufacture and then help be green, help be sustainable. I mean, there's so many things that people in the world might think about, oh, North Texas, we're not so with the program and all of that. But this is just, to me, this is the most spectacular thing to have happened in, I don't know, years for Wichita Falls.
And you know, I've always heard of hemp because hemp rope was a big thing in the United States a long time ago. And so I've always thought of hemp as something that's really rough and scratchy, and then to see this this is a blend of hemp and cotton fiber that's even softer. To think that you could turn that stalk into something like this, and we could do the processing here in Wichita Falls is an amazing thought.
Yeah. So just one more question, and then well, I could probably have two more questions. But is there anything that we as the community can do to help facilitate this, encourage, support in any way? Because I'm always about, you know, being an advocate for things that are important.
I think for things like this, at this stage when they've already...
I mean, they're already pretty well situated.
When they're already working on getting situated here, just continue to tell your elected leaders and your business leaders and your government leaders that you approve of this sort of project. Because there's more out there. But we have to have the community support, because if the community is telling the city council they don't want something, the city council's they're not going to vote on it. And so the city council needs to understand that we support this sort of project. And that way we know that we've kind of got the go-ahead to go after these things. And then when we bring them to the Economic Development Board and then the city council, we know that we'll have support. And so a lot of these elected officials, it's surprising that they tell me, you know, we really don't hear from our constituents a whole lot, especially not about positive things. They'll complain about a pothole or whatever, but they don't always hear about things that people are actually in favor of. And so if you like this sort of development, or if there's some other development that you're interested in, let me know, but let our elected officials know as well, city council, mayor, and that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, Henry, I just love that you took the time to share with us, and I'm so excited about this. And if you have anything else that comes up, please let me know, because I want to come back and interview you again, because I love Wichita Falls, and I love making it grow and be prosperous. So
absolutely.